Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Alhamdulillahi rabbil alameen. Wassalatu wassalamu ala ashrafil anbiya wal mursaleen. Khatimin nabiyyin bil qasim Muhammad. Wa ala ahli baytihi at-tayyibin al-tahirin al-ma'sumin. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. إن الله وملائكته يصلون على النبي يا أيها الذين آمنوا صلوا عليه وسلموا تسليما اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد قالوا سبحانك لا علم لنا إلا ما علمتنا. Indeed, surely it is you, Allah, who teaches us and guides us and brings this knowledge to us, otherwise we would have never known. So, Assalamu alaikum jamian wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh everybody, and welcome to our class. It's been a really long break, and it's actually been a whole year now that these classes started. So Alhamdulillah for this journey. It has been a very beautiful, fulfilling journey. And we will continue our journey into Surah Fatiha. And today the ayat we are looking at, I'm going to start the sharing. Share my screen. I've become a little rusty. Just a second. Okay, so Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. We are today going to, inshallah, look into the ayat of the Quran, Iyaka na'budu wa iyaka nasta'een. And this is where we had left off. We discussed Iyaka na'budu, we talked about Abd, we talked about being a slave of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We went into a few technical discussions into the word slave. And I have this intention of going into a discussion of the neo-spiritual understanding of ego and surrendering the ego and all of that, but it's just not happening right now. I do want to go into this word Nastaeen in today's class. So in today's class, we look at the word Nastaeen, which comes from the root word Ain, Waw, and Noon, Aun. And there are a number of instances in the Quran where this root word is used. I hope you all can see my screen. And in the screen, you can see the times that Allah has used the word Asta'inu, A'ana, Ta'awanu, Awan, and Musta'an. And we will look at these words in a bit. But what we want to go into understanding is this help. You alone we worship, and from you alone we seek help. Now, Sheikh Fadlullah Hairi gives a beautiful explanation of this verse. He says, you alone we worship, you alone we ask for help. Once you recognize that you are in love and you are worshipping the Rabb, you admit it openly. We worship you and we depend upon you. If you are worshipping and you are in love, then you are in adoration. Abada is to worship, adore, serve, and in its second form, it means to make accessible. You depend upon the merciful. This is only meaningful if there is knowledge, for otherwise it can be considered a tyranny. So just Bring into your mind somebody you dearly adore and love, and you feel them as the biggest gift in your life. And then you realize that you're dependent on them. A lot of us do get into that habit when as women, especially when initially we fall in love, we just, our end and beginning of it all is that man, and full dependence, and he's providing and this and that. And I feel that in a lot of ways, even if men fall in love with women, they become dependent on them for a lot of their needs. And so what I'm trying to say here is that there's a natural tendency to lean upon somebody we love and adore and trust. Because why? Because the human makeup includes this thing in us, which is a sense of independence, which makes us feel like we're in control. We want to be able to control and have power over our life and situation, and we don't want to be in a place of feeling needy. And I wanted to share some of the fears that we have. So, in one of the books by Oprah, she was interviewing, and this lady called Ianla Vanzant, and she gives the description of what are the different fears that we hold. And she says that there are four primal fears. Number one, the fear of losing someone's love or having your love rejected. Number two, the human mind, the fear of being powerless or helpless. Therefore, you're not safe in your being, so the fear of being unsafe. So there's a fear of being unsafe, there's a fear of being powerless, there's a fear of being rejected, and the fear of uh, the third fear is really the number one human addiction. The number one human addiction is not chocolate, it's control. So the third fear is the fear of losing control, losing control of yourself and losing control of others. Control of what will happen, how will it happen, and when will it happen sends the human ego into total meltdown. And then the fourth fear is just not being seen as valuable, worthy, or necessary. Anger is really the manifestation of one of those fears. Interestingly, uh, I had an experience. It's very initial, but I'm in touch with somebody who has been an agnostic and an atheist, and sees that his life was full of um, trauma, tragedies, difficult situation in the house, and he is actively seeking the divine. Wants to seek the divine, but he keeps saying that my skeptical mind gets in the way. And he says that I keep rationalizing things from my brain, but I have this belief. He says that I have a belief that I can only find the divine if I'm able to go into my heart. Do you see how complex human beings are? Like at one point, he's not believing in God. The other point, he's actually believing in God. He just knows that he needs to use the right device in him to catch the connection frequency to the divine. So he's not conscious, but his subconscious is at work. And what he's saying is that my skepticism gets in the way. And I asked him, what is this skepticism? And he says, I have a fear of being cheated, that I will be taught an illusion and that's not real. And when we go through trials in life, which is part of life, and trials actually start to um, happen in our childhood, but a lot of times the awareness to them, the awareness to our childhood and what and how we were treated by the adults creates the opening into a realization of how much you were mistreated. And that is the beginning where anger starts to well up, because what happens is that when you start to realize this is what good parenting looks like. This is what a good family looks like. This is what good parents look like. But my parents treated me like this, or my family treated me like this, or life treated me like this, took away my parents, or took away my best friend, or took away my security, or my dad lost his job, etc., etc. What happens is that we start to run into our fight or flight, and we want to protect because now we're being run by fear. And all of these fears, for example, dad losing a job, making him disinterested in family, will be taken up as for the child as I am rejected. I'm not accepted by my dad. My dad is not interested in me anymore. So he doesn't love me anymore. And that's rejection of love. And that makes us feel powerless in the face of somebody from whom we need something. I need love from someone, but they're not giving it to me. When they don't give me love, then I can't control them. I have no control over them. Neediness puts me in a very vulnerable place. It makes me come to a place that sometimes I may beg for love. Sometimes I may feel so much pain in my heart that I would want to control the other person into coming to an outcome of giving me love because I really, really want love. I'm feeling broken. I want to feel that I'm worthy. So all of these fears start to well up, wanting to feel worthy, wanting to have control, wanting to have power. Um, and wanting to not lose control. You don't want to go into those fears. We're triggered, and we are naturally, hardwired in the sense of, protecting ourselves. The human mind has to work in a way that it keeps protecting us. It's its job. So because of our primal need to protect ourselves, we close up, we become skeptical, and we become very, very angry at that entity who is supposed to keep things going okay. That entity who is supposed to make things work for me, give me blessings, keep me protected, my Rabb, the nourisher. Why did he do all of that to me? Why would he treat me in such a way that I feel powerless, out of control, unloved, rejected? Right? And so these stories in our mind from childhood start to take their roots in us. And some children will be aware of this, and some children will not be aware of it until the awareness comes. And suddenly, when the awareness comes, you feel that you were taken advantage of. You feel like um, mistreated. You were not given that kind of importance. So now we look at this understanding that if we are worshiping and you are in love, then you are in adoration. And abada is to worship and adore. So we are saying you alone we worship, you alone we love, you alone we adore, and you alone we ask for help. Now, there are certain aspects to this ayat that I want to. Could somebody please send the meeting ID and password on the group, because I just got a message. Somebody's trying to get in. So I really appreciate if one of you could do that. Thank you. So now looking at this ayat, the nature of this ayat is so. Thank you, Zara. I really appreciate it. Look at the nature of this ayat. Now, this ayat is actually somebody brought to my attention that the ayat is saying, you alone I worship. What if I don't worship? What if I don't adore God? What if I'm not feeling in love with God in a particular moment? What if I'm angry at God? And I feel like he let me down. He didn't show up for me. But still, I am required to pray this salah, and I'm required to say, you alone I worship, and you alone I seek help, when I clearly don't believe in it right now. My heart is not believing in it, even though I may be doing lip service. And the beautiful thing about this ayat is we've been doing work in our conscious and subconscious mind, and we know the importance of affirmations. And somebody brought it to my attention, one of my teachers, that it's so beautiful that this verse is actually an affirmation. It's an affirmation even when you don't believe in it. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is giving us that honor of, even if, for example, I'm not the best of the art, okay, I'm not surrendered, major like ego issues, I get angry all the time, I am arrogant, whatever I am. But Allah is giving me the permission to almost like say a lie and say, I worship you. Like I'm in surrender. I am in a state of adoring you. I'm in a state of loving you, even though I'm not feeling it. And we know that in the work of healing, in subconscious work, we've seen that affirmations are really, really important, because what are affirmations? They affirm something. And of affirmations are like a dhikr. And Imam Khomeini says in his book, Adab al-Salah, that your heart is like a child. And just the way a child doesn't really know what to call the mother initially, we keep saying to the child, mama, 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 until first it's just a word. The child doesn't know what mama means and they just start to babble mama, mama. And then eventually they associate the name mama with this person. And then after some time, it just becomes natural. For them, mama is synonymous to their mother. It's like the first image that comes to their mind when you say mama to a child. So what we do is that we keep saying mama as a repetitive dhikr to the child. And that's exactly what Imam Khomeini is saying, that what you do to your heart is that you keep repeating a mantra. You keep repeating a dhikr. You keep repeating an affirmation to your heart until it starts to believe in it. Now, when we start out in our journey of self-discovery and with God, we start to see that we want to we see that we look at science and biology and nature and the botanical miracles of God, and we look at the springs of water and the rainbows, and it inspires us and brings us into a state of divine admiration and adoration, and we fall in love with nature. The journey starts with that. And then when you read Surah Fatiha, you're talking about God's mercy, and you're talking about Ar-Rahman Ar-Rahim and all of that thing. So in your brain, you're starting to move into a place of getting there, but you're not quite there yet. And that's exactly where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is giving you this affirmation. And he's telling you, okay, just, immerse yourself, drown yourself, color yourself, dye yourself in the color of this affirmation, so that your heart starts to marinate into this place that you want to reach, of being in a state of ubudiyya and being in a state of surrender and adoration and service of God. Now, what was really interesting for me is to look at the second part, the last line over here. And Sheikh Fazlullah says that this is only meaningful if there is knowledge, for otherwise it can be considered a tyranny. Now look at a person you were initially in love with, and you were like, oh, he's my like everything, like my John, like I just depend on this person, and he's my everything. And then, as always, what happens, the reality shows up, and this is a human being with all the imperfections, and now you are disillusioned, and you have these moments of losing that adoration, because there's no perfection in this human being. They let you down, they break their promise. Sometimes they don't show up, they hurt you by what they say or do in their weak moments, and you have this meltdown, you have this breakdown. The whale of looking at this human being with all this perfection just falls apart. And now what happens? Now for you to be in service or adoration or in servitude or in surrender to this person becomes a tyranny. It's like you're like, why should I don't want to be around this person. I don't want to do anything for you, right? Especially when you're needy, you don't want to lose your control and power by letting this person who is hurting you to be in charge of taking care of your joy and happiness and healing and consolation, because this kind of dependence hurts the ego the most, right? And it becomes a tyranny for you to be vulnerable. In my coaching, my coach would ask me to be vulnerable, and Brene Brown is a big advocate of vulnerability. It's a new, beautiful, new awakening for humanity to wake up to vulnerability, and being authentic and real in moments of neediness, in moments of weakness. And what is the most difficult thing about vulnerability is that we are scared of being hurt and rejected. And because of that, we just want to put up a front where we don't want to come out as softies who are in need, who are crying, who are all over the place, who don't have things in control. Because if the other person is not sensitive enough, they can turn around and hurt us even more. They can say things like, you're so weak, you're so sensitive, you don't have things in control, you're always a mess, you're always all over the place. What's going on with you? And, like, I'm sorry, I don't want to cry, baby, around me. Because emotions are difficult, emotions are heavy, emotions make it difficult for us to, they trigger so many things within us. It's like you're touching the bark of the tree, but the tree has all these roots inside. So you pick on one emotion, but if you open up that Pandora's box, it's going to take you into a whole world of a lot of other things that are getting triggered, and you go into this whole other world. And a lot of times people in our circles don't want to hold that space for us because they're not ready to have their own box getting opened up, and they're not ready to go face to face and look at their own whole baggage of their pain from inner child work and childhood trauma, and all those things. And a lot of times they're not resolved. Alhamdulillah, with the counseling and therapy industry, flourishing, with coaching flourishing, with supportive circles, opening up, springing in our circles. With COVID, we saw a lot of these circles come up with people wanting to support each other. We have started to learn to be vulnerable, and one of the things I noticed that COVID did to us is that it made it okay for us to go public with our vulnerability and say, I'm not doing okay. COVID is really taking this out of me. Openly, we started seeing posts of people saying, I'm not doing okay. I don't feel like being home all the time. I'm really, really missing XYZ. I really want this or that. And we started to lose this shame around our neediness, around our brokenness, around our weakness. And I found that really profound because it started to shake off a lot of this made up facade that human beings try to, keep to the open to the world, especially on social media, where everything's going well and perfect, and there is no room for showing your weakness. And with COVID, we saw that a lot of teenagers came out and spoke about mental health, and openly we started to have these discussions. Something has opened up our hearts to admit to our weaknesses and neediness and vulnerability, that we are now more receptive to the pain of others, like the Palestinian movement. I feel like there has been an opening of our hearts so that so many more people are now able to speak for those who are oppressed. Because when we admit to ourselves that I am in pain, when we give a voice to our pain, and when we can really see and be authentic and honest and say, I am feeling pain, I am in all honesty weak right now, I need support right now, I think I'm dying, that opens our heart to self acceptance of our own pain and realizing what pain feels like. Otherwise, a lot of us will bottle it up, and that not only prevents us from understanding ourselves and prevents us from seeing ourselves, but also prevents us from seeking this support and help. And when there's a recognition of pain, then there is an awareness, and then that takes the next step to its healing. Because so many of us now through COVID admitted to this weakness and pain, we can now have that empathy, have the softness in our heart, and say, okay, I've been bound in my home with all the facilities and electricity, etc., etc., but these are people in the world's largest prison, and they are being subjugated and oppressed, and what must they be feeling? And a lot of us will go away from social media and news. Why? Because these news become so overwhelming. Again, they start to stir up, they start to poke us, they start to um, trigger emotions within us. Trigger again, what were those fears? Fears of feeling powerless, fears of feeling out of control, fear of, these things again start to get triggered in us when we look at people who are being oppressed. So before I move forward, remember, we can always pray for people, and prayers are miraculous. And inshallah, may Allah bring healing to our brothers and sisters all over the world, and bring love into the hearts of the oppressors who are hurt, and that's why they're hurting people. So we pray that Allah guides them through love, inshallah, and opens their hearts. So we said that this verse is an affirmation, and every day, 5 times a day, so many times in our salah, when we start to repeat this verse with a lot of understanding and mindfulness and an awareness of what am I saying, we start to allocate for ourselves, or we start to designate for ourselves a destination for who I want to be. I want to be in surrender. I want to be in a place of vulnerability where I can say to God, God, I'm needy. I need your help. And that is one of the biggest answers to the existence of pain in this world. The pain in the world comes to humble us. In the face of this pain, we need support. In the face of this pain, we need a back, someone to hold, who's got our backs. And through this pain, we start to understand our place of nothingness. So it takes us back into our journey into surrender and letting go of our ego. Now, one more thing that I wanted to say is that desires, one of the biggest moments of pain in our life happens when a desire pops up in our heart, and if we get attached to that desire, and if that desire doesn't come true, then we kind of fall apart. Then we feel pain because we had a desire, that desire became an expectation, then that expectation didn't come through, and then the heart broke. So what are these desires? Are they bad? Are they something I need to just close up and shove it away somewhere because I don't want to go to that place again? But guess what? Did you create that desire in your heart, or did it just pop up? Suddenly you see something and a desire pops up. This is why, while we say that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created the world for us and created us for him in a way where we can say, nature serves me to go near the divine, water serves me to nourish me and quench my thirst, food nourishes me to give me the fortification to do the duties that I have to reach my full potential, rose water makes me beautiful, all those things. So the world Allah created for me and He created me for Him. But He also created the world to entice us. There's a lot of provoking moments in our life. We're provoked into desiring things. Our desires get activated when we see something on the outside. We see beautiful things and we want them. And He has made this world for us as a testing place, as a challenge place, like I always say, it's a gym. It's a place where you go to work out. Allah has made this world with all of its temptations also as a place to understand, what are we going to do with this desire? How is it going to polish me and take me to my Rabb? Now, the conflict happens when we look at the blessings of God and we look at it as either a blessing or a temptation. And we say even if it's a blessing, it's from God. Even if it's a temptation, it's from God. But either way, it's supposed to take me to God, because that's my ultimate intention. I want to go to God. Now, if we desire something, I didn't desire, the desire just popped up. And I say it's a bad desire, shouldn't have it. I just only want to have God in my heart. Then there's a conflict, because now there's a duality. There are two things in your heart: a desire, which you think is bad, and God. But the truth is, desires are also coming from the world of the unseen, which is God. Also, we are saying there is nothing but God. Everywhere you turn is the face of God. How do we reconcile the two? Is when a desire pops up, it comes from the world of the unseen. Honor it. Don't be scared. Respect it. Okay, now what? Now we have to train ourselves in that very crazy world of reliance on Allah, where we're saying now, Iyyaka na'budu wa iyyaka nasta'een. All right? If you are in love with somebody and you trust them like crazy, and they've never let you down, if that is the vision, if that is the opinion you can hold of God, then you will say that if He is sending the desire into my heart, there can be nothing but good. But very honestly speaking, all desires don't come true. Okay, God, now what is all this about? It is about two things that can happen with a desire. A desire can get fulfilled and take you to God, and a desire can get not fulfilled and still take you to God. We hear this saying a lot from Imam Ali, who says that in the breaking of my expectations and intentions, irada, he uses the word irada. In the breaking of my irada, I got closer and closer to God, right? I'm paraphrasing, I'm not saying it in the exact words. So there's another saying from Imam Ali, which is that when a calamity befalls you, if you get closer to Allah with it, then it was a blessing. And if it takes you away from God, then it's a punishment. In all of this, we have to come back to ourselves, and we have to now reconcile all of this. A desire comes up in my heart, it will take me closer to Allah in its fulfillment, because now it will serve its purpose as a blessing for me to get close to Him. So there's nothing wrong in desiring a beautiful desire of beauty, of goodness, of Jamal of God, of perfection of God. But also to see that if this desire does not get fulfilled, it will also be a lesson, it will also be a perfectioning of my soul in my journey to God. So either way, let's put the guard down. Let's put our, scared coverings down. Let's put this, wall down of not having this open heart like a little child who can run to their father or mother and say, I want this popsicle and I want that ice lolly and I want that ice cream, and can I have all the rainbow colors? Be like that child, because Allah can come up to your expectations. He is not scared of giving anything. He doesn't have lack. He has unlimited treasures. So experiences of pain should not close us up and then take away this beautiful relationship that we could have with God, who is all loving and all merciful, and his treasures are unlimited. So when we're seeking help from him, do not shy away from asking the best that you want, the most luxurious reward that you want. Have that expectation from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, with the understanding of that love and trust, that either way, I will be fulfilled in my journey to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And the way to do that is to bring mindfulness into our intentions when we sit with our desires. Bring this mindful intention in seeking Allah's help, in asking for what you want, by constantly shooting your arrow to your target and saying, well, the target is always reaching you, Ya Allah. Do not make these desires my end. Just make them the means. If they come true, make them the means. If they don't come true, make them the means. Only and only to reach you, only and only to meet you. And that practically looks like me becoming a more godly person with more and more beautiful characters of Allah's qualities. And so let us not fall into that pit of darkness and hopelessness when our du'as don't come true, that we become bitter, that we lose our best selves, that we become so angry with God that we cut ourselves off. The problem with cutting ourselves off is from him is that it's an illusion. It doesn't really happen, and it just ends up making us angry. Now, so we looked at how, if we fall out of love with somebody, then seeking help from that person becomes the biggest challenge for the ego, right? Like, imagine somebody's, had a bad relationship and they got out of a relationship and suddenly they need something from that person. Like, over my dead body, I'm never going to go to that person to ask for help, because it becomes a very difficult place to be in. So if we become angry with God and we lose that trust in him because he let us down, how difficult would it be for us to go back to him? And we all know that we always need him. We're weak. We are so aware of our weakness and nothingness and our pain that we always have to go back to somebody to help us, right? Whether it's people in the world, whether it's whatever. We're needy. And if we become angry and bitter and skeptical, then it becomes so difficult for us to go back and ask for help. It will look like I'm rubbing my nose in front of someone I don't like. It's so painful. And that is why here Sheikh Fadlallah is saying that this kind of worship of adoration and love and seeking of help becomes meaningful only if there is knowledge. What is this knowledge? Knowledge of the mercy and the intrinsic nature of God of being loving and merciful. All right. I want to read out something from this beautiful book, A Return to Love by Marianne William Williamson. And what she says is that she talks about faith, and she says, there is no problem in any situation that faith will not solve. Our hearts beat, our lungs breathe, our ears hear, our hair grows, and we don't have to make them work. They just do. Planets revolve around the sun, and seeds become flowers, embryos become babies with no help from us. Their movement is built into a natural system. You and I are integral parts of that system too. We can let our lives be directed by the same force that makes flowers grow, or we can do it ourselves. To trust in the force that moves the universe is faith. Faith isn't blind, it's visionary. Faith is believing that the universe is on our side and that universe knows what it's doing. Faith is a psychological awareness of an unfolding force for good. A psychological awareness of an unfolding force for good, constantly at work in all dimensions. Without faith, we're frantically trying to control what is not our business to control and fix what is not in our power to fix. And then there's a few other things that she says, you don't exactly have faith in the law of gravity so much as you just know that it is. And then she talks about resistance. We were talking about resistance to God, the skepticism to God. And she says, faithlessness is not lack of faith, but faith in nothing. Faith is an aspect of consciousness. And now we've been basically taught that it's our job as responsible adults to be active, to be masculine in our nature, to go out and get the job, to take control of our lives, to take the bull by the horns. And we've been taught that that's our power. We think we're powerful because of what we've achieved rather than because of what we are. So we're caught in a catch-22 situation. We feel powerless to achieve until we already have. So it becomes like a hamster on a wheel, wanting the need to feel powerful, and to feel powerful, you want the things, and until you don't get the things, you keep feeling powerless, right? Now, the reason for me to share this was because with this breaking of the heart with God, we go into a place of resistance. And with this bitterness, we close to ourselves. Okay, now listen carefully. We close to ourselves a whole doorway, a whole portal into infinite possibilities of support and love. So now come back to what Sheikh is saying over here. If you read under the word abada is to worship, adore, serve in its second form. It means to make accessible. To me, this accessibility looks like when I'm in a state of my worship, adoration, and servitude and humility to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and I put what? I'm going to quote Yasmin Mujahid in a bit. When I have a good opinion of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, I'm able to access this goodness. I'm able to access this beauty. I'm able to access this unlimited amounts of support and love and miracle in my life, which I would close it up to myself if I go into a place of closing myself up and saying, God, I don't ever want you to hurt me again. You let me down. You didn't do this for me. You weren't there in this moment for me. I love a little parable, an anecdote that God and a person, they were walking. This is, of course, just a way of expressing poetically. God and this person, they were walking on the beach and there were two footsteps. So the person observing, who's walking next to God, is observing and saying, oh, look, there are two footsteps, God and me. And then a storm comes and, it's a difficult situation. And now one of the footprints disappear. So the person says, God, you abandoned me when I was in trouble. And God turns around. There are only one set of footprints because you were in my lap. I was holding you. And so that is that positive attitude towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. How can life itself abandon me? How can the one who doesn't let, a baby inside the womb suffocate, who holds together this massive universe and, these heavenly bodies that are, just swimming in space with this mystery and this gorgeous, astonishing world, who's holding this beautiful, astonishing world. How can he abandon me? And that's the meaning of saying you're part of that nature. You are being grown, you are being nourished, you are being taken to where you need to be. And we forget that. And we get sabotaged by this ego that says you are something and you need to control and you need to take this in a certain direction and you need to make this happen or that happen, instead of saying, okay, let me go with the flow of life. I would really recommend this book, Surrender Experiment by Michael Singer. It's a beautiful book. And the reason I say that it's a beautiful book is because it's a novel of a story of his life. So it's not like boring self-help stuff. A lot of people don't like that. And he's written a life memoir in a way in which he's written down all the instances in his life, because he did this surrender experiment. He said that I believe my life is like the tree that's growing and the stream that is flowing. So I just want to go with the flow, and whatever will come in my life, I will surrender to it. So constantly, you will hear him tell his moments of miracle after every surrender. And it's really beautiful. So it only becomes meaningful to be able to be in worship of God if we have this good opinion of God. And I wanted to share this beautiful quote from Yasmin Mujahid. And she said, Allah wants good for you. Work on absorbing that reality deep into your heart and mind. If you do, what follows is transformative. Husnul Zan Billah, beautiful opinion of Allah. This is always having a good opinion of Allah and knowing that everything He is doing in your life isn't happening to you, it's happening for you, right? This is having a good opinion of Allah, and it has to really seep into our hearts. And for that, the best practice is to, sit with yourself in silence and stillness and ask Allah, Allah, can you please transform my heart and bring into my heart a beautiful opinion of you, of your goodness, of your mercy. Because a lot of the reading and information and the lectures we listen, they will stay on the level of the brain. But for true transformation to happen, it has to really seep into our hearts. And for that, we need Allah's help. Only He can change the hearts, right? He is one of the names through which we call him is Ya Muqallibul Qulub, the one who can turn the hearts. And qalb is actually a word which means constantly in motion, constantly changing. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, I live in your heart. These constantly changing states of the heart, that's His domain. So it's really important to not think that I'm going to do XYZ things and I'm going to change. You do what XYZ things you want to do. And then again, you leave it in Allah's hand. And for that, just sit in silence, do some breathing, talk to Allah, and then hand your heart over to Him, consciously making the intention of saying, Allah, I want this transformation to seep into my heart. And I'm really working on that. Like I'm going through that where I want to do that. I want that transformation so that any unpleasant situation that comes up through any human being in our life, we can put on these goggles and lenses or glasses, and we can say, every day where I turn is the face of God. Nothing is bereft of God. Nothing is deprived of God. Everything is a face of God. And what I'm seeing is God in motion. So if this is happening to me, which is unpleasant to me, it is from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And Allah, show me the goodness in this. And because I know that you are in control and you run this universe and everything is from you, meticulously planned and designed for my life, I know in my heart, deep within, that this unpleasant situation is a gift from you. There is something good in it. It's so hard. Please don't think that I'm in any way in a place where I can be in an unpleasant place and say, oh, wow, this is from God. I'm just saying that it would be ideal for us to reach that place because that's the reality. And if we are madly in love with the person who's, for example, managing our affairs, and something goes topsy-turvy, we would first of all call them and say, Yar, what's going on? Is everything okay? Are you okay? Is everything fine? Could you please let me know how I can help. This happened, and I'm sure that you use your best judgment, or I trust you. Could you please tell me what's going on? It won't come from a place of lashing out or anger or skepticism or closing up your heart and saying, I don't want to talk to this person ever again, and not take an explanation. Recently, I was informed of two relatives, and one relative, out of a very random conversation with an XYZ person, decided to hold a certain opinion of person B, and person A stopped having a good opinion of person B for 15 years. And Alhamdulillah, due to the sincerity of person B, or whatever Allah's gift was in that, finally, after 15 years, an XYZ person somehow out of the blue was able to remove that bad opinion from the heart of person A. And I was just in awe hearing this story, that, it's so beautiful that, Allah clears up our hearts when we're in that journey of wanting to get close to Him. But whatever we experience through our relationships with people is also a very big reflection of our relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So when I'm not able to reach out to human beings because of the fear of hurt, I'm actually not able to trust in Allah and His goodness, because somewhere my relationship with Him got scarred or broken or hurt. So we go to Allah and we say, Allah, please heal us. Please heal this hurt. Please heal my heart so I can be vulnerable. Because really, I want to emphasize this. People are not separate from Allah. People are the manifestation of Allah working in our life. So if I come to a place of having a good opinion of Allah, I can automatically come to a place of having a good opinion of His people. And instead of my mind whirling into a desire to hold a bad opinion of a person, assuming the worst, assuming the most negative for that person, I actually struggled with this issue in my life, that when there were people in my life who would bluntly come to my face and say, you have a bad intention. You have a bad intention, or if you're going through a situation where you want to be quiet and the person thinks, oh, you're not talking because you're arrogant, right? And if you go through those phases, then that is showing that the other person is so quick to judge, so quick to hold an opinion of you which is not good. And that is a representation of their mistrust in the whole system of life, that you can be cheated easily, you can be taken advantage of, someone can walk over you, you can become a doormat. And so the vulnerability goes out of the window, and there's no space in my heart now to be myself, be authentic. So I want to now put up a cover of saying I've got it all under control. But who has it under control? I don't know who has under control. I don't know anybody who has things under control, really. And so we start to put up these fake, masks on us. And the more we become unaware, and in a sense of unawareness and mindlessness, when we go into covering up our hurt, covering up our vulnerabilities, our wounds, our hurts, we start to move away from ourselves. And that is very counter to our journey, because we need to go towards ourselves. We need to be close to ourselves. We want to see ourselves with all of its black and the white. And until and unless we're not ready to do that, we really can't know God, because qadara fa nafsahu qadara fa rabbahu. So one of the most grounding principles of us making it in this journey is to seek help and be of those who have the humility to seek help, to say, I really don't have it under control, and I really don't have the power, and I am weak, and I lay my bare heart to you, Allah. I leave it. I'm hurt. And I had said this earlier in one of my things I was doing on Instagram, that if you're unable to pray to Allah, then pray that you're able to pray to Him. Because what else can we do? Really, can we do anything? Can't. So, a lot of us stop praying because of that. And inshallah, now I just want to close the session and just closing this with the fact that once we have a good opinion of Allah, inshallah, we can rewire our brains. We all now know neuroplasticity. Until you die, your brain is ready to change. Change the wirings of your brain from having an immediately negative notion, assumption, negative thought, negative presumption about anybody, any situation, and rewire it with a positive narrative. Because our Holy Prophet ﷺ has told us so emphatically that when any negative opinion comes into your heart about anybody because of any experience, find 70 reasons to absolve them of that negativity. Make up 70 reasons. And honestly, it's transformative. Immediately, these affirmations, this positive mindset will show you how effective it is immediately when it works. For example, a lady was saying that my husband has never bought any paintings. He's just not into paintings. He doesn't buy art. And when she was guided to say, no, my husband, it was a lie, right? Just like we were saying, it's a lie. That she said, no, my husband likes art. He likes to buy art. She just said it. And within 2 minutes, she could find paintings in her house that her husband had actually bought. So what that negativity does, it pulls a veil on the truth. It puts a veil on the goodness that there is in the world, because Allah is goodness. So there's no way that there is no goodness. And when we go into our negativity, remember, negativity is egoic. Ego is an illusion. It starts to put veils on the real. So staying positive is not, what do they call? Uh, staying positive is not doping you. It's not deceiving you. Staying positive is not a sugar pill that will make everything look dandy to you. No, positivity is the reality. Positivity is the goodness. Positivity is the real way to do life. It's when we get negative that we get into the rut of looking at the very little in our lives, which is not good compared to so much, which is good. And we now know that Allah is saying in the Quran that all good is from me and evil is from you. And I always say, if everything is from God, then everything is good. So that negative also is really not negative. Negativity or negative opinion or seeing things as bad is the real illusion. That is the illusion, right? Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. I would like to now close with the dua. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. O Allah, we come to you as your weak and humble servants in our weakness, in our powerlessness, in all of our flaws, and all of our mistakes, and all of our mindless, oblivious states of being not present. O Allah, we come to you with all of that. And we come to you with this childlike, cheerful, joyful hope that you're going to make everything okay. You're going to make everything right. You've got it, because you've got my back and you're holding me and you're my savior and nourisher and protector and guide. And you're the one who paves the way to goodness always. So I will stand here, O Allah, with my one step, waiting for you to take the next 100 steps for the healing of my heart towards becoming a kinder, softer, generous person. Oh Allah, help me so I can emulate your godly goodliness into my soul to get closer and closer to you, oh Allah. And oh Allah, bring healing to this world that is ailing, that is crying, that is wailing in pain, oh Allah. Show us the meaning of this pain. Show us the way to healing, Ya Allah. Show us the right way to goodness through all of this that looks so painful, oh Allah, and give us that ability to balance all of this into our lives in the most godly and beautiful way. Ameen Ya Rabbal Alameen. I will stop the recording now and